I'm Cameron Stornello, and today I'm going to be telling you about plastics in the ocean. Slightly more than a month ago, scientists discovered a pregnant whale dead on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea outside of Porto Cervo, a small resort built on tourism. Veterinarians and scientists performed an autopsy on the enormous marine mammal on the beach. They were shocked to find a dead whale calf in utero, as well as 50 pounds of plastic in her stomach, and the stomach were bits and pieces of squid. Marine biologists assumed that the whale died due to the plastics in her stomach blocking nutrition from the squid from ever reaching the whale's blood. Thanks to the mindless dumping of plastics into the ocean, this whale and her unborn calf died. If this doesn't get your attention, I do not know what will. Today I will be informing you about plastics in the ocean, specifically what plastics are, how much plastic there is in the ocean, and finally how it all gets there. Everyone has their own idea of what plastics are. However, there are many variations and types of plastic waste. It all started with the invention of plastic around 1907 by Leo Hendrik Baekeland. That's from the History and the Future of Plastics. This was the beginning of plastics. Plastics are a polymeric material, that is a material whose molecules are very large, often resembling long chains made up of a seemingly endless series of interconnected links. Natural polymers such as rubber and silk exist in abundance, but nature's plastics have not been implicated in environmental pollution because they do not persist in the environment. These long chains are what cause the plastics to persist in the environment and do not break down. This is what the chains look like. They're very long and interconnected, and that's why they don't break down in the environment. Plastic can be created in many ways. However, two main processes are used to produce a plastic: polymerization and polycondensation. They both require specific catalysts. In a polymerization reactor, monomers such as ethylene and propylene are linked together to form long polymer chains. Each polymer has its own properties, structure, and size depending on the various types of plastic monomers used. They are produced on a colossal scale through these processes. We're using precious natural materials to create this garbage, as told here. Plastics are human-made materials manufactured from polymers or long chains of repeating molecules. They are derived from oil, natural gas, and increasingly from plants like corn and sugarcane. About 4% of the world's petroleum is used to make plastic, and another 4% is used to power plastic manufacturing processes. Polyethylene represents about a third of total plastic production, with PE is naturally utilized in packaging. That's polyethylene, and that's from Brunner. Huge amounts of plastics are being produced every second. In 1950, the world produced only 2 million tons per year. Since then, the annual production has increased nearly 200-fold, reaching 381 million tons in 2015, and that's from The Purpose. With this amount and style of production, as all of you can probably guess, this plastic will end up in our environment and cause some issues. Now I will tell you specifically how much plastic there is in the oceans, though it can't be that specifically, since we do not know. The article by Maria Pedrati described the concentration of plastics in the ocean based on relativity to the shoreline and other factors such as population of the largest town to the shoreline. She found that the 1 kilometer strip adjacent to land was known to be a zone with elevated plastic abundance, high diversity of polymers, and a higher proportion of small-sized fragments. Yet it is likely that a higher concentration of the plastic found closer to the coast and an increase in offshore areas is a common feature of marine plastic distribution. From Pedrati, this means that there are more plastics closer to the shore than there are out at sea. Another article describes the severity of plastic pollutions around the coast of Australia, while simultaneously relating this problem with the rest of the world by saying, the high prevalence of plastic fragments smaller than 5 millimeters in Australian waters is consistent with other regions of the world's oceans, where microplastics were found to be the most abundant type of debris in all types of marine environment. That's from Reiser. This means that the data the scientists are collecting is very specific to their areas of observation, but the trends can be applied to the entire ocean. If the amount of plastics in the ocean is still not quite setting a view, the industry experts expect that by 2050 we will be producing 3 times as much plastic as we do today on a volume basis. The World Economic Forum sees that by 2050 there will be more plastic than fish in the oceans. Here we see that the amount of plastic floating in the ocean is the equivalent of dumping 1 garbage truck into the ocean per minute. There's 17.6 billion pounds of plastic waste end up in the ocean each year. There are approximately 5 trillion pieces of plastic of trash floating in the ocean surface. Plastic can enter the ocean in different ways, but none of them are as explicit as you may imagine. These materials can go into our ecosystem in ways that you may not think of. Here we see the top 10 items found. That's cigarette butts, there's around 2 million. That's plastic utensils, 692,000, 100,000. I'm guessing wrappers of some sort, 1,140,000. Those are straws, plastic water bottles, glass bottles, plastic bags, cans. I'm guessing those are caps, and then those are paper bags. But they're all very, very high, and they're things that we use every day and throw away and don't consider. Pedrade explained in her article some of the ways that plastics get into the ocean. Small plastic particles can directly enter the ocean as industrial and cosmetic abrasives, pre-production plastic pellets, or acrylic textile fibers entering wastewater circuits from clothes washing machines, commonly referred to as primary plastics. Additionally, by combined mechanical, biological, and photothermal reactions, large plastic objects floating in the sea surface progressively break down into numerous small pieces referred to as secondary microplastics. This means that plastics entering the ocean in small pieces are primary microplastics, and bigger pieces that are then broken down by things are called secondary microplastics. Another reason that so many plastics can enter our oceans is because of our lack of our own work. Only 9% has been recycled. The vast majority, 79%, is accumulated in landfills or sloughing off in the natural environment as litter, meaning at some point, much of it ends up in the ocean. The final sink, from Parker. All of these factors contribute to the amount of plastics that find their way into the ocean and eventually cause huge issues. In summation, I explained to you what plastics are and why, chemically, they do not break down in our environment naturally. I also told you about the concentration of plastics in the oceans and how immense that is. Finally, I explained to you how these plastics got into the environment and oceans. All these things contribute to environmental issues for animals and humans both.